Hi, in this video we're going to practice writing CSS code to style what we have written so far in the job 8 that we are creating. I will continue following the tutorial that we have. I will go to the tutorial and we are now in section 4. We are going to style the page. And we are given the external link to the CSS document that we are going to use. So just click on this link. I will click on it and it's going to open a new tab with the CSS code that we are going to use. So we need to save this file into the CSS folder that we created in the previous video. So to save it, I will go to File and then go to Save Page As. And then I will go to the folder, the CSS folder that we created. It should be within my desktop folder. And then it's in the lab 1 folder. It's this one over here. Make sure that you select the CSS folder. And the name of the file is going to be job8.css. So it should be over here. It added a little bit more to the name of the file. So just make sure that the name of the file is just job8.css. And then you can save it. All right, it's already saved. To make sure that it's saved in the right folder, you can open it in Dreamweaver. We'll go to Dreamweaver and then go to File and then go to Open and go to the CSS folder, and you should be able to see the job8.css that we have downloaded there. Okay, I will click on Open to open it. And you can see that it already includes all of the CSS rules, all of the CSS code that we are going to use. However, let us suppose that we don't have the file. So I will close it and I will delete the file just to show you what you would need to do in case you are not given the file, right? So I will delete it. And then we will need to create a new file, a new CSS file. And for that, the way to do it will be to go in Dreamweaver, go to File, and then create New. So click on New from the menu, click on New. And then you will select over here CSS. We want to create a new CSS file, and then click on Create. So in this case, we will have a blank CSS file, and then we will need to save it. So click on File and then Save. And then you will select the CSS folder that we created within the lab 1 folder. Just select that folder, and then the name of the file in this case will be job8.css, all together and all in lowercase. Again, make sure that you select the CSS folder and then click on Save. All right, so you can see the name of the file over here, and we have created a new blank file, a new blank CSS file. And then we can add over here the styles that we are going to use. I will go back to the CSS file that we are given, and I will just copy the first CSS rule. So you can see what is going to happen when we add the body CSS rule. So I will just copy this body over here, including the selector, body, and the curly bracket. Let me make the font a little bit bigger so it's easier to see. So I will select the body CSS section, copy it, and then go back to Dreamweaver and then paste it over here. So this CSS rule is changing the background color for the whole page because we are applying it to the body. Remember that body stands for the whole content of the web page. So we are changing the background color, and we are also changing the font color, the text color for the whole page. All right, so let me save this file. I will go to File and then Save. And then if I open this in the browser, I will go to the browser and then reload this page. You will see that nothing changed. We don't have any background color or any text color. And the reason is that we haven't we haven't associated this index.html file with the job8.css file that we have created. There is no association between them. So we will need to add an HTML tag in order to link this HTML with the CSS file. So for that, I will go back to Dreamweaver. You need to go to the index.html and then go to the head element, the head section over here, and right below the title element, let us add a line of code, HTML code, that is going to link this index file with the job 8. So for that, I will go back to the tutorial and then I will add this line of code over here in step 2. Just copy this line of code, go back to your Dreamweaver and paste it right below the title tag. It doesn't matter where it is. By convention goes below the title tag, but it has to be within the head section. It shouldn't go within the body section. In the body section, you only have the content that you want to display. So this link over here goes within the head section. Also, pay attention to the name of the file. So over here is job8.css. So it has to correspond, it has to match the name of the file that you created. Now we can save this file. So click on File and then Save. And when you do that, you will be able to see that the job 8 is already linked. So you can see it over here. So if I click on it, you can see the actual code for the job 8 file. So it's right here. This is the source code, the HTML code for the index.html. And this is the associated CSS file. This is the way to know that the CSS file is already linked properly. All right, so we should be able to see now the corresponding styles, these properties applied to the job 8. So I will go to the job 8 and then I will reload the page. Every time you want to see the new changes, you will need to reload the page. So I will reload it. And you can see now that the background color changed. And also the text color is different now. If you don't like these colors, you can explore other colors by going to Dreamweaver. And then you can open the color palette by removing the color and then typing a hashtag. So just type the hashtag and you will see the color palette, and then you can choose which other color you want to use. So you can explore different colors. You can see the hexadecimal value over here. This is the value that will be added over here, right? And then you can save it and then reload the page. So it's totally up to you to decide which color you want to use. Now let us go back to the CSS code, and next we are going to add the CSS code to style the heading. H1 is the main heading, H2 is the subheading. So I will copy this section over here and put it in Dreamweaver. So I am doing it section by section, so it's easier for you to see the styles that we are applying. So for H1 and H2, what we are doing, we are centering the content. So I will save it and then go back to the job 8. You can see that the content is aligned to the left. Now with the CSS code that we have added, if I reload it, you can see now that the heading, the main heading, and the subheading are both centered. So if we take a look to the CSS rule once again, you can see that you can specify multiple elements that you want to style, applying the same property. So in this case, we want to apply the text align center property to H1, the main heading, and also to H2. and then we will need to have a comma between them. All right, so let us move on. I will go back to the CSS code, and next we are going to style the wrapper. Notice over here that we have a comment. So this is the syntax to add comments. All of the comments in CSS go within these characters. It's the forward slash and then an asterisk, and then they are closed by the asterisk and the forward slash. So over here, this comment mentions that you need to notice that the wrapper is preceded by a hashtag. So we have a hashtag over here. We didn't have a hashtag for H1 or for body. And the reason is that the body is the name of the HTML tag. H1 is also a name of the HTML tag. Wrapper is not an HTML tag. If you remember in the code that we have for the index HTML, wrapper is the value of the ID. So let me open the code so we can see it. I will go to the source code for HTML, and you can see that wrapper is the value that we have assigned to this ID. All right. So whenever you want to style an element using the ID, we will need to add a hashtag before the name of the ID. Okay, so I will go back to the CSS code and then copy this section over here, and then go back to the Weaver and paste it over here at the bottom. All right, and let's take a look to what we are doing with this wrapper. So the property that we are changing is the width. Initially, the width by default will be 100, which means that it's going to take the whole width of the window. And with this value, we are reducing the width of the wrapper. And then with a second property over here, we are centering the content. So to center a div container, we are going to use margin 0 auto. All right, I will save it and then see the output. Before I reload the page, just pay attention that this line of text is taking the whole width of the screen. Now that I have added the property to reduce the width to 85%, you will notice that these lines of text are not going to take the whole width of the screen. So let me reload it. All right, so you can see that there is some spacing to the left and to the right. So the content is taking 85% of the whole width of the screen. I can change the size of the screen, and you can notice that it's going to be always 85% regardless of the size of the window. All right, if you want to have like a more spacing and you want to reduce further down the width, you can change the value. You will need to go to Dreamweaver, and then let's change it to, let's try, I don't know, like 65. Save it, and then reload it. And you notice now that the width is narrower now. So it's up to you to play with different values. I will keep it at 75%. So you want to keep it at 85 or 80, is totally up to you. And again, this property over here is to center the wrapper. Let me show you what will happen if we comment it out. I will comment out this line of code over here. I'll save it and then reload the page. You will notice now that the content is aligned to the left. So you want to center the whole content, you will need to add this margin 0 auto. So let me put it back. We'll just comment this sentence over here. So it is convenient to use some comments. This is the syntax to add comments, especially to help you remember what each property is doing. All right, so let us continue with the next block of CSS code. This is for the step title. I will copy and paste it over here. Okay, so this over here is using a that instead of a hashtag, is using a that, a period. And the reason why we are using a period is that step title is a class, not an ID. Let me go back to the code so you can see the step title is over here. And this is the value that we're assigning to a class, not to an ID. All right, so whenever you want to style a section using the class, we will need to precede the class name with a period. All right, and the reason why we are using a class is because we have multiple step titles, not only one. So let us take a look to the different properties that we're assigning. We are adding some padding, some spacing around the text of the title. We are aligning the title to the left. We are also changing the background color. We are changing the font weight, so the title is going to be bolder than the rest of the text. And we're also increasing the size of the font, the size of the text. So it's going to be bigger than the rest of the text. Let me save it. Then go back to the job 8. And now pay attention to the step title over here. I will reload the page. And then you can notice that it applied all of the styles. So it changed the background color. It also adding some padding around the text. And you can explore or experiment using different values. Like you can add more padding if you want. So let us try, I don't know, like 20 pixels for padding. You can also try a different font size, different background color, or different text color. It's up to you. So let me save it and see what happens when we add more padding. All right, so you can see over here that the step title has more padding, more space around the text. And you will notice that we also have different background color below the image. And the reason is that we have an empty step title. Remember that we added the code to add a step 2. So let me go back to Dreamweaver. And then let me show you that. We have over here the div container for step 1. But we also added the div containers for step 2. Right now it is empty. So whenever we add the title for the step 2, it's going to be displayed over here. All right, so we can move on adding more styles. Next, we are going to style the content of the first step. So the content includes the text description and also the image. So let us take a look to the final sample to see how we want the content to be. Okay, so we want to have a 2-column layout. In the column to the left, we want to have the text, and then the image should be in the column to the right. In order to have a multiple column layout, we need to have a parent container containing each of the columns. So let me try to annotate it. So we can see over here that we have a parent container, this one over here, and it includes 2 containers. The text over here, and also another container for the image over here. All right, so we have already done that. We have already the HTML code. So I just wanted to point it out again because hopefully it's going to be helpful for you to understand that in order to create multiple columns, you will need to have a parent container surrounding the columns. And we are going to apply a style to the parent container. All right, so let us take a look to the code. Let me erase these annotations and then go back to Dreamweaver. All right, so we have the step content, and the step content box or container includes the description and the image. All right, so we need to apply a style to this step content. Now I will go to the CSS file that we are given. It is over here. And then highlight this block that corresponds to the styles to the step content. I will copy it, go back to Dreamweaver, go to the job 8.css, scroll all the way to the bottom, and then paste it there. All right, so let's take a look at the CSS properties that we are adding for the step content. We are changing the background color to white. We are adding some padding around the text. And this one over here is really important, display flex. This property over here is going to create the multiple column layout. So you want to add a comment, creates multiple column layout. All right, so this is the syntax for the comment. So without this line of CSS code, we cannot have the two column layout. And then this CSS property over here is related to this flex. It means that whenever the size of the window is too narrow, then the image is going to be displayed below instead of being displayed next to the text. This is mainly for responsive design, so the content is going to look nice in a mobile device, right? In a mobile device, instead of having two columns, we are going to see only one column. We are going to see the text on the top and the image at the bottom. All right, and this last one is just to center the content. Okay, so let us save it. I will go back to the output and then I will refresh the page. And notice that when we refresh the page, it's going to apply the styles to this section, to the content of the step 1 section. So it's not exactly what we expected. We have the white background color, but we were expecting to see two columns, the text to the left and the image to the right. And we don't see the two columns yet because by default, every div container takes 100% of the whole width of the parent container. So we will need to narrow down the div that includes the text and also to narrow down the div that includes the image. To do that, we will need to go to the CSS and then copy the styles for the step description block and also for the step image block. These two blocks over here are the boxes or containers included within the step content. So we can see that the first one, the step description, is going to take 55% of the total width. And then the other one, the image, is taking 40%. So if you add up these two values, in total will be 95%. It's not 100% because we are using some spacing. So it shouldn't go all the way to 100%. So you can keep it at 90 or 95% to include some padding or spacing around the content. So we can see that we have also padding for the step description for the text, and we have some padding for the image. All right. So I will highlight and copy these two blocks of CSS code and then paste them here. All right, so I have explained the width for each of them. In total should add up to 90 or 95%. So the step description is going to be a little bit wider than the image. We have some spacing around the content. And over here we have line height. This one refers to the spacing between the lines of text. So this is a good value to have, something between 125 and 145. Otherwise, the line of text might be too close to each other and it makes it a little bit difficult to read. So when you add a little bit of spacing between the lines of text, the text becomes a little bit easier to read. All right, so let me save it and then go back to the output. And when I reload, pay attention to the spacing between the lines. And also you will notice that this section over here is going to be 55%, and then the image section will be 45%. So both of them should be displayed next to each other. Okay, so just like this. To add one more image below this one, we can just go back to the HTML code. Remember that HTML is to add content, including graphics. So all we need to do is to add the HTML code. I will just copy and paste the same image, but you can have another image, like the image corresponding to step 2. And then if you want to have a line break between the images, you will need to add a BR HTML tag. And then I will save it. Go back to the output. And then you can see now 2 images. So this is just in case any of you might need to have 2 images for one of the steps for the job A that you are going to be creating. Okay, so notice the spacing between the lines that we also added using the line height CSS property. So now the text is a little bit more readable because the lines of text are not too close to each other anymore. All right, so next we are going to add some CSS properties to the images themselves to make the images responsive. So the images are going to resize automatically when we resize the window. Right now, if I resize this window, you can see that the images keep their current size. They don't resize automatically. So whenever you access this job A through a mobile device, it's going to look a little bit weird because the images are not a part of the parent container anymore. All right, so let us fix that. Let us add some CSS to make the images responsive. So for that, I will go to the CSS file and let us copy these 2 blocks. The one that we need for the images is this one. Let us also copy the last one, which is to emphasize the text. So let us copy these 2, go back to Dreamweaver, go to the job 8.css, and then paste these last 2 CSS rules, CSS blocks over here. So this is the code to make the images responsive. The width of the images will be 100% of the parent container. Pay attention to the way that we are selecting the images to be styled. These styles will be applied only to the images included within any of the step images. So if you have any other image that is not inside the container with the step image class, then these styles will not apply. All right, so let me save it and then let me reload it. So you could see that the images are a little bit bigger now. They are 100% of the parent container. And more importantly, when I resize this window, you can see now that the images also resize. They become smaller as I keep resizing the window. Okay, so this is done thanks to the CSS property that we have just added. And the last CSS property that we have added is for the strong HTML tag. This is going to make the text a little bit stronger, a little bit bolder, and it's mainly intended to put more emphasis to a section or a block of text. Let me see in the final output if we have anything that we need to bold. Okay, so we will need to bold this text over here. So for that, let us go to Dreamweaver. Let us go to the index.html, the source code. And let us identify the text that we will need to emphasize. So the text is important to inspect visually all the way to coil. Well, it doesn't seem that I have that paragraph. it looks like I might have forgotten to copy it. So I will just copy it right now and put it here. I will need to put it within a P tag, the paragraph tag, and then paste it. Okay. Now we will need to use the strong tag in the sentence that we want to bold or make stronger. So we'll be over here. So we'll just use strong. Dreamweaver is going to close the tag automatically. So I will cut the closing tag. I will move the closing strong tag after coil. So only this sentence over here is going to be bold. Let me save it and then reload the page. Okay, so you can see now that this text over here is bold. All right, so we are ready to move on with the second step. So I will go to the final output and then copy the text for the second step, and then go back to Dreamweaver, and then I will go to the HTML code for the second step. This is the step title. So within the opening and closing div containers for the step title, I will paste the title for the second step. Then I will save it and then go back to the output and then reload this page. All right, so we can see over here the title for the second step. Now, if you want to add some spacing between these steps, you will need to add a break, a line break between them, a BR tag, right? So let me show you how to do it. So between this closing div for the step 1 and the opening div for step 2, we will need to add a BR tag that's like a break between them, and then save it, and then I will reload the page, and you can see now this break between step 1 and step 2. So it's up to you. You want to keep them all together, or you want to add some spacing between them. And then you can keep just adding the remaining steps. The process is very similar. First, you will need to add the structure, the div containers for each of the steps, and then you will need to add the corresponding content within each of the containers.